Good day, Southside. My name is John, and I will be sharing a reflection for today's portion of our journey to Easter. Our passage comes from 1 Corinthians 2:14 to 3:15. But people who aren't spiritual can't receive these truths from God's Spirit. It all sounds foolish to them, and they can't understand it, for only those who are spiritual can understand what the Spirit means. Those who are spiritual can evaluate all things, but they themselves cannot be evaluated by others. For who can know the Lord's thoughts? Who knows enough to teach him? But we understand these things, for we have the mind of Christ. Dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I couldn't talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk as though you belonged to this world, or as though you were infants in Christ. I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger. And you still aren't ready, for you are still controlled by your sinful nature. You are jealous of one another and quarrel with one another. Doesn't that prove you are controlled by your sinful nature? Aren't you living like people of the world? When one of you says, "I am a follower of Paul," and another says, "I follow Apollos," aren't you acting just like people of the world? After all, who is Apollos? Who is Paul? We are only God's servants, through whom you believed the good news. Each of us did the work the Lord gave us. I planted the seed in your hearts, and Apollos watered it, but it was God who made it grow. It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What's important is that God makes the seed grow. The one who plants and the one who waters work together with the same purpose, and both will be rewarded for their own hard work. For we are both God's workers, and you are God's field. You are God's building. Because of God's grace to me, I have laid the foundation like an expert builder. Now others are building on it. But whoever is building on this foundation must be very careful, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one we already have, Jesus Christ. Anyone who builds on that foundation may use a variety of materials: gold, silver, jewels, wood, hay, or straw. But on the judgment day, fire will reveal what kind of work each builder has done. The fire will show if a person's work has any value. If the work survives, that builder will receive a reward. But if the work is burned up, the builder will suffer great loss. The builder will be saved, but like someone barely escaping through a wall of flames. The word of the Lord. What jumped out to me was the section in the middle about following Apollos or Paul. Here is Paul, who has written half the New Testament, telling the people in Corinth not to be calling themselves followers of him. It made me think of an experience I had as a younger man. I remember in Bible college, there was a pastor from the States who was the big thing. Especially among men my age, he was the guy. Calling men into the church out of apathy, he was a leader of manly men. This was the sort of guy that people would say, "I follow him." But the cracks started forming, and the multi-campus church that he had set up collapsed in on itself. Shortly after he resigned, these churches either went independent or shut their doors. This was one example of what has happened when people follow other people instead of Christ. In a similar way, we are not followers of Pastors Jen or Johnny, of Rachel Held Evans or Francis Chan. We are followers of Christ. That's where our pastors direct us, is to Jesus. Not to say that we shouldn't be listening to others. Elsewhere, Paul actually told his readers to imitate him as he imitates Christ. But again, the focus is on Christ. No one has the corner on truth except God himself. In following Jesus, we ought to be asking many trustworthy people to be speaking into our lives, sharing truth, sharing their journeys, and even accepting correction when warranted. But ultimately, we aren't following other people we are journeying with. Ultimately, we are following the author and perfecter of our faith, Jesus Christ.